Welcome to the weekly chapter release from D. Aaron Arp. If you enjoy serialized fiction and want each new chapter delivered directly to your inbox, subscribe on Substack. That is where you will get weekly releases, updates on upcoming books, and news about new projects before anywhere else. On Substack, you can follow the story week by week and stay connected to everything D. Aaron Arp is writing next. Now, onto the chapter. Chapter 5. Raina sat next to Silva as the 28 students assembled in the small auditorium awaited the arrival of their tutor. Her voice bounced brightly in Silva's head, an annoyance that had already become familiar. The enthusiasm with which the girl had adopted her was surprising, given that Raina was meek with anyone else. She drew some strange confidence from the bond of forced cohabitation, which Silva couldn't quite understand. Still, if Raina was talking to her, the rest of the students seemed to accept that she was too occupied with introductions. For now, it was worth it. Gentry glanced at her for the third time since they had sat down. Silva maintained her gaze elsewhere, so he didn't feel encouraged to interrupt Raina's dissertation on the political implications of every student's family and how they should be approached. The room was a half circle. 4 rows of connected stone desks followed the curve of the room, which bent around a stone podium at the front. The floor, walls and podium carried the same dull grey of the rock the Aegis used for wardstones and pillars for their craft, as if being encased by the stuff would help the students absorb their lessons in runework. Silva had claimed the carved wooden chair directly in front of the podium. She didn't want her classmates' distractions to become her own. The clicking of hard leather soles echoed from the door to the hallway as a man walked up to the podium and arranged his personal notepad beside the only textbook handed out by the quartermaster that she found interesting, The Geometric Study of Runic Pathways, by Alric Dornman. And here he was, Major Dorneman himself. Bearing the gold insignia of books only the tenured researchers of the division owned, he stood perhaps an inch taller than Silva, who was not quite 5.5 feet. He wore a short beard that made him look too old to be a student, but entirely too young to be lecturing novices on a book he himself had written. He patted his shirt a few times, before he located a set of small round spectacles he donned, before looking up and addressing the students who watched him nervously. You should all feel proud that you have been admitted to the 103. The Aegis relies on this division's innovations in the application of essence manipulation for defense, and funding for my research is predicated upon my teaching this class. Make no mistake, the odds of any of you contributing meaningfully to the body of work we have built in this field are almost negligible. I appreciate your attendance, as my work could not continue without your participation. I will lecture for my required 3 hours per week, and I will make myself available for 1 office hour per week for questions. Of the 28 here, 5 of you will fail, 5 will be granted a distinction, and the rest of you will pass. My focus for grading will only be on those who fail or receive a command recommendation. The rest of you will pass. Call it unfair if you must. It makes no difference to me whatsoever. The war front needs bodies, so I will fail the bare minimum of you. Command positions are competitive, so if you choose to vie for those spots, then work hard and show you are competent. If you fail, that is unfortunate, but know that I am required to fail. 5. So it is nothing personal. All the instructors at this institution are given the same directives I am, and, though they might not be as blunt about it, I see no reason to lie to you. You are adults. This is how things work. You cannot affect it, so do your best, and don't waste more than an hour of my week discussing it. Let's begin. Silva liked this man. He would find, however, that his lack of faith was hubris. He had nothing that she didn't, and she'd be damned if she let him tell her that she wouldn't see things that he and his colleagues hadn't. Silva spent the next hour almost motionless as she listened to Dornman's introduction to his class. He delivered a competent but apathetic lecture that felt very practiced. Silva only stirred when he added something that wasn't in his book. She needed the context between the margins. Not now, Raina, Silva clipped when the girl inhaled to begin again after the lecture was dismissed. Silva swung her legs over the top of the desk and walked toward the podium, not having the time to wait in the line of exiting students. She knew Dornman would gather his things and escape the crowd quickly, because that's what she would do. "Major, a moment please," Silver said, as she instinctively touched the inside of his elbow to slow the man's retreat. He stopped, just before he reached the door, and looked down at her hand, which she quickly removed. "My office hours are posted in the syllabus if you want to speak," he said dismissively. "I don't want to speak with you, sir. I just need your signature," she replied. Surprise flickered across his face, then gave way to amusement. "Polite, aren't you?" "I don't know what you mean," Silver said. "I need access to the library. The introductory texts tell me almost nothing I need to know. The librarians guard their books more closely than COG. Marines guard spire portals. This form grants me second-year access. I asked for the third-year form, but, like I said, they are jealous of their books. If you blow up the school because they let you take a book you aren't ready for, they will be taken before the Greyhaven Council and imprisoned. Your enthusiasm increases that risk. Give it a few months, and if you see a book that interests you, come during my office hours, and I will consider letting you read it from the shelves in my office. If I have it," Dornman said, as if speaking to a child. "I already have a list. I doubt you'll give me anything by Braun yet, so I will settle for Runic System Dynamics, Stability and Control by Bumby, and Theory and Computation of Essence Fields by Jin. Once I've read those, I will need you to sign off on lab time so I can recreate some of their experiments," Silver continued, following him as he walked out the door and into the hall. His pace increased slightly. "I promise I won't try to change anything they did, but I need to practice my chalking and carving. Also, an hour a week won't be enough. You can watch me read if you feel you must, but I need more time than that. It's the first day of classes. Who even told you about those books? I have them, of course, but why start there? Wouldn't Ravioli's Fundamentals of Applied Essence Magnetics be more appropriate?" he asked. "I didn't think you'd give me 3, but yes, I will take that one as well if you're offering," Silver replied thoughtfully. "I don't need much room, but as long as you don't disturb my reading, I won't disturb you as you work. I do my work in my personal lab at my residence. I do not use the student labs for my work. I don't know how appropriate." "That will be fine. Set the books aside. If you have a chair, I will use that. Otherwise, I can just sit on the floor. I can find the address." "Thank you for your help," Silver said, and saluted before walking away, leaving Dornman watching slack-jawed as she faded into the crowd of students. It only occurred to her as she reached her next lecture hall that she had forgotten to tell him her name. "It doesn't matter. He will figure it out eventually," she thought, smiling. "You're going to go to his house? Major Dornman's house? To read?" Reiner asked incredulously. Her friend had cornered her after their lectures that afternoon. The reading list they had assigned was laughable. Silver was out of material and felt like a boiler with a broken steam regulator. If she didn't get something to work on soon, she would burst. Reiner had pounced on the opportunity to quiz her about ambushing Dornman, and her questions seemed to gain momentum instead of losing it, as Silver answered. "It's actually more of an apartment attached to the Applied Research Building," Silver corrected. "It's very efficient. I don't know why all the tenured officers don't choose to stay in apartments like that. You can sleep in your bed instead of under a desk or something. It makes sense." Silver sat with the faculty directory she had seen lying on the librarian's desk the day before, looking through the brief descriptions of fields of study and lab assignments beneath the contact details and names of every officer stationed at the research center of the 103. This was the most useful thing she had gotten from the sour woman at the library desk. "I wonder if I should wait until tomorrow to go over there. It would be better to give him at least a day to collect the books for me. I don't want to be rude," Silver thought. "Do you want the whole division talking about you? Spending time at his residence will be too juicy not to create rumors," Reiner said, pensively. "Because I want to read." Silver scoffed. "That's ridiculous, Reiner. It's the only way I am going to get access to what I need. I'm not here for some popularity contest. I am here to learn." Reiner just shook her head and lay down on her cot, staring at the ceiling, giving up. Silver hadn't considered the impropriety of studying at the man's apartment. Is that why he emphasized where his lab was? It's a shame he wasn't a woman. Not that it would have completely alleviated the implication. Distractions like this shouldn't get in the way of her work. She had waited so long to have access to formal instruction in runecraft. She had apprenticed in an artificer's shop since she was 16, and had been tasked with carving the patterns for shard lamps hundreds of times. Her hands could carve the runes without chalk or the stencils the runesmith who owned the shop always tried to make her use. She had made a mistake in the groovework once, and melted one of the lamps to slag. Her alteration had drawn too much from the shard, and generated a higher ratio of heat to light that increased each time the essence cycled through the circuit. She was lucky it had melted too thoroughly to show the variance in the pathways, which was too great to explain away as a mistake, and that it hadn't burned the shop to the ground. Watching the grooves fill with essence, once the copper wire had been soldered into them, fascinated her. When the circuit connected the shard to the grooves and power blazed along the pattern, to the glowing filament, she could only wonder, where did the energy come from? What about one pattern created heat? What about a different pattern created light? Why did using the power fill the air with the smell of burning sulfur? So many questions. And would fear of a rumor of her slagging Dorman stand in the way of her finding the answers? Laughable. She wasn't sure whether his being younger, or reasonably handsome, made it better or worse. Surely, for the man, it made it worse. But, for her, it wouldn't matter either way. If people wanted to whisper that she had earned the books on her back, let them whisper. If the rumor somehow became true, that did not strike her as the disaster Reiner seemed to imagine. It might be pleasant, it might be dull. It would almost certainly take less time than another argument with the librarian. The man was handsome after all, and Reiner had been encouraging her to be more social. One way or another, she would find out what the school could teach her. The rest, she would ask of the runes themselves. Silver knew she'd find Bram and Kieran where the Greycoats had been told to stack their kit, near the edge of the staging lane, close enough to be called back in, far enough to be ignored until needed. Silver slowed as she approached, not because she was tired, but because she wanted to feel some space around her before she stepped into the camp. The fog had lifted just enough for the sky to show through in a thin, bruised strip, and for a moment the manifested spire was visible beyond the district, an impossible vertical silhouette. From the ground, it always looked like it should be only a few hundred meters across. Greyhaven, the city she called home when she wore blue, sat inside the first of 9 levels. Limbo. 1 million bodies and their streets and their markets, stacked into one layer. A contradiction made permanent. Silver had always thought of it as a forge, a place built to take desperation in by the cartload and hammer it into soldiers fit to survive whatever waited on the front lines of the Rift Wars. Silver wasn't sure she would have believed in the gods at all if the spire didn't exist. Not because it proved divinity, because it proved reality had rules she didn't understand, and something had written those rules with a hand too large to argue with. A voice cut through it. Silver. She blinked, and realized she'd already reached the kit stack. Bram sat on an upturned crate, with his elbows on his knees, posture disciplined, even in exhaustion. Kieran paced nearby, restless, checking and rechecking buckles on his gear, as if refusing to be still could keep the day from settling into him. Bram's eyes stayed on her through the glass. He didn't ask if she was all right. He asked something practical. What did he want? He said. Silver didn't waste time. He wants ward support, she said. Me. Specifically. Kieran's face lit with immediate interest. Why you? Because I didn't let him carve a bad arc into stone, Silver said, her tone dry. He's short on competent runesmiths. Bram's jaw tightened, and he thinks borrowing a greycoat fixes that. He thinks borrowing a trained hand does. Silver let that hang a beat, then added, he's trading for it. Kieran leaned forward. Trading how? Silver met Bram's eyes first, because Bram would hear the trap in any gift. 3 Aegis regulars, she said, assigned to replace us on burn detail and line support. They take our rotation, So we aren't abandoning our purpose to prop up their ward crews. Kieran let out something like relief through his teeth. So we're done burning sores. For now, Silver said. If people start to suffer, we will find time to help. But our primary duty shifts. Bram bristled. He never relaxed around Aegis's promises. What's the catch? There's always a catch. He issued a revocable writ, she said. It authorizes us, me, you, Kieran, as independent ward maintenance consultants across the quarantined districts. Integrity checks, repairs. But we get access to placement maps, quarantine plans, and incident stats. Kieran blinked, trying to hold all the words. That's, he started. Then Bram cut back in. It's Aegis's work, Bram said, and the caution sharpened. And Aegis's work comes with scrutiny. Silver didn't deny it. It's conditional, she said. Revocable, non-interference clauses. If something fails, they'll investigate. If someone needs a scapegoat, I know who stands to answer. Bram's expression didn't change, but Silver saw the part of him that liked the machine stir anyway, the part that remembered what it was to have defined roles and clear command chains, to fit inside. He didn't like being under their authority again. He did like structure. Those two truths lived side by side in him like a permanent argument. Kieran, on the other hand, looked like she'd just offered him clemency. So, we don't. He made a crude gesture of using, then emptying a chamber pot. We don't have to do that anymore? We still do reclaimer work when it's needed, Silver said, ignoring his implication. But this gives us leverage. Information, access, a chance to stop the spread before any more must burn themselves to survive. Bram held her gaze, weighing the words the way he weighed risk. Compensation? Silver let herself show the smallest hint of satisfaction. Contractor rate, she said. Comparable rank. All three of us. Kieran's mouth fell open. Paid? Like Aegis? Paid, Silver affirmed. Bram went still, not softened. Deciding, money was not his first language, but he understood the value of keeping a camp fed, stocked, and warded. Of not begging for supplies from people who'd almost rather see the greycoats vanish. And the replacements, Bram said, checking one last edge. Will come, Silver confirmed. A runesmith is more valuable than a regular soldier, and he needs my eyes. Bram exhaled, slow. He didn't smile, but the resistance in his shoulders eased a degree. Kieran grinned outright. So, when do we start? Whenever they tell us, she said. Let's just hope the plague stays contained. If it doesn't, the Aegis will burn half the city to stop it, and we'll be standing in the fire with everyone else. Silver looked past them again, up toward the spire's impossible outline as it faded back into fog. Runesmithing for the Aegis. Just like old times.